Hiya lovelies and welcome to book club, more specifically Shadowhunters book club. So if you are new around here, I am currently in the middle of a Shadowhunters Chronicles reread. I'm doing a series of reading vlogs where in each one I read according to the Simon Teen recommended reading order. Originally I read in publication order, and I know some people read chronologically, but if it's recommended, I feel like there's something I'm going to garner from this order. This is reading vlog number 2, so up on my channel there should already be one where I start the first few books in the Mortal Instruments series. So if you want to follow along in the order I'm reading, I will leave a little card to that up here. I originally started the Mortal Instruments series when I was 10 or 11 years old in preparation of the City of Bones movie coming out. So I definitely think there's going to be some things I pick up on this time round that I didn't the first time just because of my age when I originally read it, because I am now 23. With that being said, that is why this is a spoiler-filled vlog, so I can analyse everything. So if you have not read the Shadowhunters Chronicles, or you don't want to be spoiled for any potential future books, please leave now. In this video we are going to be tackling the infernal devices. That is Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince and Clockwork Princess. Yes, it does slightly annoy me that my Clockwork Angel is in a different cover to the other two, but at least I have copies of them. Now I know this is so many people's favourite series within the whole wider Chronicles. I'll be honest, personally, I think my favourite series at the moment, without reading them all yet, is the Dark Artifices, but I will say Will, Jem and Tessa still hold a special place in my heart, and the emotional impact of this series is strong. I do anticipate this is going to be the reading vlog where I cry for the first time, because the first 3 Mortal Instruments books and the Red Scrolls of Magic, I didn't cry yet. Without further ado, let's get into reading Clockwork Angel. I've literally only read 36 pages since I talked to you many hours ago. The reason being is I completed some sacred Saturday night rituals. I made a pasta bake, I drank some wine, and I watched the Strictly launch show. And before that, a new thing that I've added for this Rugby World Cup, the Women's Rugby World Cup, is I watched the Red Roses play. We won our semi-finals, so we are in the finals at Twickenham next week. Anyway, that is my little Strictly and Rugby detour. We have only got 36 pages in, but my god, do I love seeing the Shadow World in London. I am a girl from the southeast of England. I am about a 40-minute train ride from central London. London holds a little part of my heart. I also have family who are from London, so seeing this world set in a city I know so well, it's always going to be something that I enjoy. I've yet to decide on a specific song or album for this. I think because we're set in the 1800s, it's a slightly different vibe that I'm not sure what yet encompasses it yet, but we have been introduced both to Will Herondale, Jem Carsters and Tessa Gray. Now, our main female character this time, she still is new to this whole world, she's being introduced to it, but we suspect from a downworlder perspective because she is being told by the Dark Sisters to change. These women who kidnapped her, pretending that they were there to pick her up on the behalf of her brother Nate, but in actuality they're saying that they have him and they will harm him if she doesn't do as she is told. So she is essentially being held hostage and about to be married off for her powers. Obviously, like I say, we've seen Will and Jem. We open this book on Will and Jem hunting together, and the first word out of Will Herondale's mouth in this book is Jem, which feels incredibly appropriate. Also, he points out that it's no fun showing off with no one to show off to, which just tells us so much about William Herondale as a character. In many ways he's like Jason, in many ways he's like Magnus. I think he has this mask he hides behind that he depicts to the world, but instead of personifying himself into a weapon in the way that Jace does, he personifies himself into a showman and into someone frivolous and who chases the fanciful things in life, which is definitely more Magnus Bane. You can see why Magnus will develop a fondness for William Herondale in this series. But that's pretty much all we've seen. We've not seen the London Institute yet. We don't really know what's going on. We don't really know the basis of the story. We have just been dropped right into character introductions. So let's read a little bit more and see how far we get tonight. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life, and we're officially a little bit more of the way into this story. We're actually getting into the meat of what's going on. So we're at page 161, which is chapter 7. We've had Tessa be rescued by Will Will Herondale. We've been introduced to all of the characters that reside in the Institute. So we have Charlotte and Henry, who are married. We have Will and Jem, who are parabatai. We have Jessamine. We have Sophie and Thomas and Agnes, I believe, all who work in the household. So we have quite a large cast of characters. We have learnt that Tessa is definitely a Downwilder. She is a shapeshifter of some degree, but there's a lot of mystery around her because they assumed she would be a warlock. She holds no warlock mark. So she is essentially a great big question mark, and she has been taken into the Institute because they think she's going to be a key part of this investigation. That investigation has led Charlotte and Henry to go and see Mortmain, who was Nate, Tessa's brother's employer. He is also the creator of the cogs and the machinery elements that were found in the Dark Sisters' house. Now, I do not trust Mortmain as far as I could throw him. I remember in my little brain that I should not trust him. He is saying that he knew Tessa Gray's father, who we're assuming was Tessa Gray's father, before he moved the family over to America. When Nathaniel Gray contacted him saying who he was and he was coming to London, Mortmain officially gave him a job on the spot. We find out that Mortmain had introduced Tessa's father to the Pandemonium Club, which is essentially a bunch of really rich mundanes and then also Downwilders who kind of own the club and who control the club, and they just deal in things of the downworld, the occult, etc. I feel like this is a perfect example of, throughout history, people with more money than sense getting involved in things they shouldn't, thinking that they have the power to get involved in things, and let's face it, they are probably being taken advantage of by the downworlders involved. There is definitely something a bit more complex there. I feel like that interaction, and specifically what happens after it in the carriage with Charlotte and Henry, it shows us a little bit more into their relationship. There is a level of deep trust and understanding between Henry and Charlotte that I think a lot of people don't realise, and she is perhaps the only one to truly realise his brilliance, which is why their relationship works. Henry also doesn't begrudge Charlotte her strength in any capacity, least of all because she's a woman, and I adore that. Counter to that, we have Jessamine, who despises the fact that women have a greater level of equality in the Shadowhunter world and are warriors. Now, Jessamine is a character that I never quite know how to take. Her mother had expressed to her that she wanted her to be someone in society, someone of high standing, to have all of those very Bridgerton-esque things. That being ripped away from her, it almost feels like she is stuck in a level of childlike wonder and entitlement to that even though she is a 17-year-old girl and she has been raised in the Institute and raised in the Shadowhunter world, she still actively shuns it because it is not who she has always believed herself to be. So I find it quite difficult to know how to read Jessamine, because I do think as we get further into this book, we see that her desire to leave this life and go back to the life that makes her feel perhaps closer to her parents, because it's the life her mother always wanted for her, that makes her easy to manipulate, and thus she gets taken advantage of in many ways. I think I definitely come to like her more as the book goes on, but currently she's not making a good first impression. Speaking of people trying not to make a good first impression, William Herondale. What is it about Herondale men? What is it about Jace and Will, both who try and push away or defend themselves against them? But like I say, we're on page 161, so we are about to get into the Clockwork Girl. So time to jump back in. Something I'm really noticing in my reread of all of these, but I think this series specifically, is that I always thought that Shadowhunters and these stories of warriors, of Downwilders, it was depicting really, really brave characters. What I failed to realise the first time I read them, or really maybe failed to understand, whether that was because of my proximity to the age of the characters in this as a teenager, or whether that was just because of emotional maturity, who's to say, but these aren't just brave characters. These are characters in some ways defined by fear. Think of Tessa. She is a young woman on her own, no family other than her brother, crossing the ocean from America to London alone, and then she is kidnapped. She has no idea what's going on. She discovers she has this new power. She is trying to find her brother who is missing, who she thinks is in danger. That all describes a very fearful environment where she would be so completely scared. And yet she is still brave and vivacious. She tries to fight. She stops to think logically, to change so she can slip out of the bindings the Dark Sisters have placed on her to keep her in the bed. She finds the weapons that she can, which is a ceramic jug. When Will goes to unexpectedly open her door, she brandishes one of the weapons, or one of the saws that seems to be for human bones, in what I'm going to call the slaughterhouse of the Dark Sisters' house when they are coming after her. Her instinct is to use her fear and transform it into bravery. Now, another character in here who is very much, in many ways, defined by his fears is William Herondale. Will is defined by his fear for the depths of his love and the repercussions of others loving him. So he creates himself in this image of being very reckless, of being a showman, of being fun and flirtatious, and it comes across that very much he is carefree in many ways, yet he is so specifically in control of himself. We see this that he claims he went out drinking, got into a fight, had a bottle of gin broken over his head, and that he is drunk, except the minute that Jem starts coughing, that Jem seems to be unwell in any capacity, he instantly sobers. It's like he was not drunk in the first place, and Tessa notes that this is something she'd never seen from her brother in this way. The next morning he has a full plate at breakfast, which does not seem to be the behaviours of someone who was out drinking the night before. He remains in control of himself even when he is trying to portray the image that he is not, because he is trying to create this carefree image so people do not love him, so they cannot get too close. And yet we see it constructed in the small moments when Lady Belcour comes to the sanctuary at the Institute and Will and Jem flank Tessa, who Lady Belcour wants to meet for the first time. Lady Belcour notes that she already knows Will, who when he was looking into the Pandemonium Club came to a gambling den and may have gambled some money away. The spoils of vice are a burdensome responsibility. It's quick-witted and it's sharp and it makes him seem irresponsible, even though we've seen that he very much cares for his Shadowhunter responsibilities up to this point. And it's interesting because it is like the other side of that coin from Jace. He was never taught what love truly was. He saw it as harm, and thus his distancing from himself and weaponizing of himself stems from that, whereas Will knew love. He knows the depths and powers of it, but he believes that people loving him and his love in return will cause terrible repercussions for those people. It's two sides of the same coin, but both as complex and intriguing as each other, and create this outward persona for these two men. Even though they lived 100+ years apart and never knew each other, they simply share a surname. And I think the Herondale men, just their relationship to love is never easy, even though they give love and loyalty like it is their lifeblood. It seems we are starting the day with the phrase, "Bloodthirsty little beasts never trust a duck." Never trust a duck. You disgrace the name of Shadowhunters everywhere. What has Will done? Why does Gabriel hate him so much? Magnus! You're here! Is this Nay? Wait, is this Nay? I didn't bring a tripod down. Is this Nay? I was right, it is Nay. It is Nay. Again? Will's bit a vampire before? Is this what he does in his free time? We made it to page 254 before we had to go run some errands. Yes, I wore this top the other day. Yes, I've done laundry since then. It's not just re-wearing the same top. Big reveal just happened. It is Nate at De Quincy's party who is going to be vamp killed. So we're right in the drama. We want to jump back in. Also, Magnus Bane thinking William Herondale is absolutely gorgeous. It's just chef's kiss. Dark hair and blue eyes. He's a sucker, we know. Page 254, chapter 11. Let's jump back in. Okay, we made it to page 353 and I have notes. Also, I feel like I never actually intro today. So hello, it's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. We've been very productive today. We woke up, did a bit of reading, went to the parcel shop, sorted out laundry, did the washing up, did more reading, And we really seem to have got into the meat of the book today. I mean, we have about 130 pages left, so I'm sure we will finish her tonight. Let's recap what we've been through so far. One thing we're really seeing is a lot of context about Will's character. He is being pointed out that he likes to be carefree. We even had the interaction with Jem and Tessa where he notes that Will lies a lot. Once Jem followed Will into the city and watched him just wander the entire evening and came back with these tales of great adventure and carelessness, recklessness, and debauchery in many ways. He never asked why he lied. And that is perhaps the foundation of their relationship, because Jem doesn't ask why of Will. He accepts Will as he is, whereas everyone else asks why or hopes for more from Will. It's this exacerbated but in many ways fond look at what Jem views Will's behaviour as. Jem points out, I cannot function as your missing sense of self-preservation forever. Eventually you will have to learn to manage without me. This is a comment that only Jem can get away with, because Will lets Jem a lot closer than other people. But it also hints at potentially why, because we also have seen Jem talking to Tessa about what happened with his parents and the fact that he is essentially addicted to this demon drug that is slowly killing him. And we have this acknowledgement, and Will is highly aware that his parabatai will not live forever, is likely to die and die very young. To some degree, you wonder whether that is why he lets Jem get away with what he does. Then you wonder, is it just because he is his parabatai? But then you reflect on interactions like after Will has bitten a vampire, consumed holy water, and made out with Tessa. He loses control of that very controlled mask and lets his impulses take hold. So in this moment, after Will has so clearly lost control with Tessa the evening before, he is grasping at something in which to control. And surging forward with finding De Quincey, surging forward with the investigation is what he can control. So that is why he is pushing in this manner. He does not in any way mean harm to Nathaniel, even if that in some ways comes across as something he doesn't care about. But instead, his need for control is ruling what he's saying. In this same interaction, when Will takes shots at Henry, because he's again grasping for a sense of control in some manner, Charlotte tells him that Henry loves him like a little brother, and Charlotte does herself. And Will responds with, I wish you wouldn't. He is trying to not hurt these people. He isn't defensive in that very barbed way that we see Jace be, because he thinks all love is destructive in and of itself. But instead, he is trying to distance people from himself. He's trying to reject people's care without hurting them. And again, that is part of him needing control. Now that I just rambled for ages, we are going to see how much more of this we can get through tonight. Like I say, we're on page 353. I would like to update you on two of the great joys of my life. This is a little peach and orange tea, but it is in this is my Halloween mug for this year. Every year I go in search of a Halloween mug, usually because mine get broken. And this is this year's. I feel she needs a name. I don't know what name to give her yet, but she has the cute little jack-o'-lantern trick-or-treating bag and the eyelashes. Look at her, she's gorgeous. The other great pleasure of my life is I'm essentially going to fake tan tomorrow, which means a little bit of everything. We're going to do a hair mask, we're going to fake a tan, we're going to do it all. But tonight I had to do the full body shaving routine. I have shaved, I have moisturized, and getting into bed with bed sheets and soft blankets on freshly shaved skin, it's just one of the great pleasures of life. Anyway, this tea is actually too hot to drink, but we're going to jump back into reading now, because those were really necessary updates to this vlog. So according to Nate, their mother's journal said that they left under the cover of night from London to New York. No other explanation. What if the reason was Tessa? And obviously her warlock heritage suggests she has a demon parent, right? What if the reason they left under cover of night from London to New York, no forwarding address, no anything, is because either Tessa had just been born or the mother was pregnant with Tessa and they realised something was different about this child? Because obviously her parents have been frequenting the Pandemonium Club. Nate suggests they went not once but multiple times. So is that what has then led to Tessa's existence. Nate is in more of this book than I remember. I think Jessamine is so desperate to get away from the life of a Shadowhunter that she is convincing herself that she loves the first man she sees enough to live a life with him, because that is an out from this life. And that leaves her open to be manipulated. Also, Jem and Will both being protective when Nate states that obviously interacting with De Quincey, he had to pay off some debts. What did he want? He wanted Tessa. That's why he sent the letter and the tickets to come over to London. Nate's excuse: he told me all he wanted was to teach you to use your power. He told me you'd be honoured and wealthy beyond imagining. Will: well, that's just fine then. It's not as if there are more important things than money. His eyes were blazing with indignation. Jem looked no less disgusted. I'm so glad they both agree. Nate, it's not looking good for you. You look like a spoiled little boy who always seemed to get his own way and who never learned to have a little modicum of common sense. Mortmain has made a reappearance. I told you. I knew that he had to come back at some point. Now, has he appeared at the front steps of the Institute after all of the adult Shadowhunters have gone after De Quincey in Chelsea on the word of Nathaniel? Yes. Does that feel suspicious? Yes. Yes, it does. So it appears this may be a trap. This isn't particularly relevant to where we are in the novel right now, nor the action that is about to unfold, but it's a little detail of something Will remembered from earlier in the novel that Tessa said, and it's a quote of Dante's Inferno. This seems to have stuck with him. He remembered Tessa telling him that hell was cold, and he fought back the odd urge to smile at the memory. They'd been running for their lives. She ought to have been terrified. And there she had been, telling him about the Inferno in precise American tones. And this brings us back to something I've said before, and something that I think is evident so well in this book, is that these are teenagers. They aren't just innately brave, they aren't fearless by nature. They have their fears and insecurities, and they have a lot of things that are unknown that scare them in the world. They have their individual ways of finding bravery to move forward, and I think a big one for Tessa is remembering the familiarity and the comfort of novels and literature, of worlds where endings are guaranteed and they are predictable in many ways, especially if it's rereading a story you already know and love. De Quincey is not the Magister, if my memory serves, and I'm not sure it does. But I'm saying let's not trust Mortmain, and let's not trust Nate. I feel vindicated. We should have never trust Mortmain. I'm sorry, Nate. Why are we looking at Mortmain with a look of worship? See, Jessamine so desperately doesn't want to be a Shadowhunter, yet when these moments present herself, she has that instinct to put herself in front of Tessa. She did it in Hyde Park. She's doing it again here. She wants to protect in that very innate way that a Shadowhunter's role is to protect, it's to defend. And that is what Jessamine does. I think there's more to her character than we have been presented to. And I think a lot of it maybe does go back to a childlike idealization of what she deemed her future should be because of how young she was when she lost her parents. Is the cat that Jem takes, is that Church? I'm sorry. Tessa's sisterly affection leaves something to be desired. Nate, you're a terrible brother. Like, I hate to break it to you, but you are a terrible brother. He killed his aunt. She raised you. Ungrateful. Oh, who cares if he's alright? After all the lies he told, he lied to me. Also, that sense of justice, again, it plays into that almost childlike desire to escape. She did trust him because she saw him as a way out, and the potential for that to be manipulated was high, as we'd already discussed. I feel I haven't talked about Sophie a lot, but honestly Sophie is so incredibly strong as a character. When Mortmain tells her to leave, tells her that she won't be harmed, they just want Tessa, she refuses to. She refuses to leave without Tessa, and she stands by the side of her friend. This is not someone who is actually a permanent part of the household she served. There's a friendship there. There's a kinship. And honestly, I think Sophie is an underrated character in this book. Thomas. I think this tells us something so much about Will. Thomas is a boy that was Will's first friend when he came to the Institute. He's watching him die, and he thinks Jem should be there instead. in part because Jem could make anyone feel that things were going to be alright, whereas Will privately suspected that there were few situations that his presence did not make worse. That's not him being a showman, that's not him putting on a persona, that is the truth of Will, and that is incredibly heartbreaking. Sleep then, good and faithful servant of the Nephilim, and thank you. It wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. But it's all there was. Ooh! This is the first time in the Shadowhunters reread that I have cried. You're right, Tessa, Will is being cruel, and you are right, it is because he is lying to make himself look bad. He is trying to stop you from caring for him. Because this is Will. This is Will who knows you love the poets and literature. He knows you are a romantic, and that is who you will always be. So he's trying to push you away, and he is trying to hurt you because in his brain that is keeping you safe. Cassandra Clare writes a complexly emotionally broken man, well, boy, so well. That's how we end. So Will turns up to Magnus Bane's front door, well, Camille's, but anyway, soaking wet, says, I need your help, there's no one else I can turn to. So Magnus is all, very well, why don't you tell me what the problem is? And that's where we end. I'm not starting the next one until tomorrow. So we're done. I forgot a lot of the plot in this book. I actually think I remember Clockwork Prince and Clockwork Princess more. I remembered Mortmain was the Magister. I didn't remember that he has Nate under his power, and I think that was seeded very well, and it was very interesting. Mortmain is brought up so much that you know he has to come back as a character, but how they do it is still very, very interesting. I've talked about Will and how this finishes. It makes it so evident that Will's story will continue in the next book, and we will get to see that a little bit more in depth. We see Will, whose capacity for true caring love is so deep. He yearns to love the people around him. We see fear come into play, I think, a lot more with these characters. Will is a character defined by fear in many ways, and I think Tessa is too. She is experiencing unknown after unknown after unknown, but it is her care for others, like Nate, that keeps her going with the Dark Sisters. It is her desire to rescue him that keeps her going for a long while. And then it is protecting Jessamine and Sophie in the Institute that creates bravery in the face of fear. There's so many layers to these characters. For example, Henry, who is seen as a bit of a joke by the Enclave. Henry, who cares deeply for Charlotte. We see it, he knows how others view him, and he doesn't want to reflect badly on Charlotte, and he knows that others doubt Charlotte and doesn't want to give them more reason to. And yet you look at how he is this creator, he's an inventor. He is evidently interested in how things work. We see this in his interest in Mortmain's blueprints. I think there's more to it than that, because he doesn't just want to know how these things work. He wants to create inventions that help shadow hunters, that protect them, that make life easier, and there's something to be argued that in turn it would make them safer. He does a lot of his inventing from a place of desiring to help in any way he can, both the Nephilim in trying to achieve what they are there to do, which is protect mundanes, hunt demons, but also to help the people he loves. There's so much going on in this plot. The automatons honestly freak me out more this time that I'm reading it. I feel like we're laying a lot of groundwork in this one, and that's groundwork that we will see pay off, but there's a lot of questions I still have, and honestly I feel like we didn't get as much time with Jem as I really would have loved to have. I think that's all my thoughts. I might have more thoughts in the morning, but for now I'm going to write a Goodreads review, watch some Waterloo Road, and we will regroup to start Clockwork Prince tomorrow. Good morning, good morning. I really haven't talked that much this morning, but we are marinating in fig tan and we are about to start Clockwork Prince. I almost lost an L there. Not got much to say. I'm about to do a how many pages can I read in 60 minutes video for TikTok for the start of this book. So let's just get straight into that and then I will come back with my thoughts once I've filmed that. I'll be honest with you. I meant to update you earlier in the day and then I got sidetracked. I had errands to run, etc, etc. But when I filmed my little reading for an hour TikTok, I got to page 85. I finished the chapter I was reading, so I got to page 105. So I am now on page 105 of Clockwork Prince. We definitely dive straight into this one. Obviously, Clockwork Angel, it was always going to be slower to start compared to City of Glass was the last Mortal Instruments book I'd read. That was evidently going to get into the action, get into the drama a lot quicker than Clockwork Angel did, because Clockwork Angel has to introduce you to a whole new cast of characters, a whole new setting. This one we dive straight in. My initial thoughts are, we're seeing more Magnus Bane. Obviously, we kind of expected that from where the epilogue of Clockwork Angel left off. From what we have seen of Will and Magnus so far, it appears that they are trying to raise a demon. In fact, they are looking for a very, very specific demon. One Will believes cursed him in the past somehow. We're assuming when he was 12 because that's when he left his family. In fact, all Will seems to have told Magnus is, you opened a Pixis and released a demon. It cursed you. You want me to find that demon and see if it will remove the curse. Bare bones. Real bare bones of what we know. But this interaction also emphasizes something that I've said in my previous vlogs about Magnus, which is that he cares so deeply for others, especially people who interest him. He is trying to understand Will's why, trying to help him come to terms with whatever he is struggling with that means he is going after this demon in this way. He is treading this really interesting line where you can see it's not just personal curiosity. He actually does have care for Will and is trying to help him through this, but at the same time this is also a business relationship. But the fondness that Magnus is exhibiting for Will here, you just think Will has blue eyes and black hair, and did for a minute Magnus think of Will the first time that Alec comes to the loft at Chairman Meow's party? You have to ask. It seems that Sophie is also going to be a bigger part of this book than she was Clockwork Angel, which I am extremely happy about. The Lightwood brothers are coming to the Institute to train Sophie and Tessa. If Benedict Lightwood has no haters, I am dead. We have two new servants to the Institute. One is Cyril, I believe, who is Thomas's brother. And then we also have Bridget, who, as far as I can tell, just seems to love singing old Irish ballads. That's all I'm picking up. We have a fake engagement between Gemma and Tessa to go and try and convince Aloysius Starkwater of the York Institute to help Charlotte because he has a grudge against Charlotte's father. Does it matter that Charlotte's father is now dead? No, apparently not. And also, Benedict Lightwood has made a play for head of the Institute, and now Charlotte and Henry and all the others in the Institute have 2 weeks to try and find Mortmain or get significant leads on his whereabouts. It just feels like people want them to fail, but also that does present an opportunity for the bonds between the characters in here to strengthen even more and get to see them interact, which I always love. Whilst they're at the York Institute, Tessa has a nightmare after seeing the spoils, right? And Will wakes her up and cares for her and is really tender with her. And we keep seeing these little flashes of moments because Will seems to be actively trying to keep his distance from Tessa. But we see these moments where he almost can't help himself. We saw it in the Institute library. We see it when he leaves a book for Tessa outside her room. And we see it when he promises he would never let anything happen to her after this nightmare. And Tessa reflects on this. What had Will meant coming to her room like that? Why had he shown her such sweetness when she knew that he despised her? And why, when she knew that he was the worst thing in the world for her, did sending him away seem like such a terrible mistake? There's two things going on at once, right? There's the truth and then there's the lies that Tessa thinks is the truth because it's what Will is swearing to her is. And Will is doing that from a place of trying to protect the people he cares about. I said about Clockwork Angel that I think it is a book full of characters defined by fear. I think the actual arc of the entire series is one defined by love and hope in the face of fear. Also, I'm aware this was not a flattering angle to vlog from, but my back hurts. This I don't remember. Why is Cecily here? I feel like I look like I have one of those airplane pillows that gives everyone a double chin. So Will's family are in that manner, and Mortmain is threatening them, so Will has to leave before he can warn them or see them, because they aren't Shadowhunters anymore, and if they get pulled into this, the Shadowhunters won't help them. I know Cecily becomes a bigger character, but I can't remember how. I think Magnus just defined himself very well. He was really going to have to do something about this annoying soft-hearted impulse to assist the desperate, Magnus thought. That and his weakness for blue eyes. You don't do anything about it. Over 100 years later, it's still a thing. You still have it, and it still gets you into trouble, Magnus. But we wouldn't want you any other way. I had come to think I would never love anyone, but I love her. Wow, that describes Will well. This odd, infuriatingly damaged, shattered boy. This is the defining thing that explains Will's character. This is the thing that makes it make sense, why he is such a showman, why he attempts to create a persona that is not worth caring about, why he pushes people not to care about him, actively tells Charlotte in Clockwork Angel that he wishes Charlotte and Henry would not care for him, because a demon turned around him when he was 12, when he opened a pick six by accident and said, "I curse you, all who love you will die, their love will be their destruction, it may take moments, it may take years, but any who look upon you with love will die of it, unless you remove yourself from them forever, and I shall begin it with her," meaning Ella, his older sister. His sister did die, just not Cecily. His older sister died, the one that the demon said he would start with, the one who loved Will enough to protect him. So he sees this as proof of this curse. It's like a prophecy now. Anyone who loves him will die at some point. Jem is what I have allowed myself. I tell myself if he dies, it is not my fault. He is dying anyway and in pain. Ella's death at least was swift. Perhaps through me he can be given a good death. He is a 17-year-old boy holding the burden of thinking that if anyone loves him, if anyone cares for him, they will die. So he isolates himself, so he acts in a certain way, so he makes it out like he goes out drinking and whoring just to push people away from him, to create this space. He's made a home with these people where he actively has to antagonize them every day, even though it goes against his nature. And the one person he allows himself to be bonded to, who he allows to care for him, is a boy who is going to die anyway. I want to hug him so badly. I just want to hug him and say that it will be okay. What is it about Herondale men and their almost perpetual inability to reconcile a healthy relationship to love and emotions? Hello, we are still reading Clockwork Prince and I have things to talk about. So we are at page 215, which is chapter 10, and so much has happened. We have had Will spiral and go to a yin fen den. Talk about questionable choices. After we see that, and after we hear about the nature of Will's perceived curse or the prophecy of if someone were to love him with Magnus, we go back to the Institute and Magnus sends Tessa a note. Now this defines Magnus's character so clearly. He cares deeply for others. He looks after and looks over the people he cares about. And he does not mind angering those people if it means protecting them in the long run. And that is what this note says. Dear sensible Miss Grey, I write to you on behalf of a mutual friend, one William Herondale. I know that it is in his habit to come and go, most often go, from the Institute as he pleases, and that, therefore, it may be some time before any alarm is raised at his absence. But I ask you, as one who holds your good sense in esteem, not to assume this absence to be of the ordinary sort. I saw him myself last night, and he was, to say the least, distraught when he left my residence. I have reason for concern that he might do himself an injury, and therefore I suggest that his whereabouts be sought and his safety ascertained. He is a difficult young man to like, but I believe you see the good in him as I do, Miss Grey, and that is why I humbly address my letter to you. What I find interesting is Mr. Magnus Bane, Mr. I owe Shadowhunters, I owe the Clave nothing. I have no allegiance to them. I don't even particularly like them in the Mortal Instruments. Out here being like, he is a difficult young man to like, but I believe you see the good in him as I do. You have a soft spot for Shadowhunters, especially the wayward type. Let's be perfectly clear here, Magnus Bane. Now, obviously, this leads Jem and Tessa to finding Will in the Yin Fen Den. I really don't think Will sees his actions as having the ability to hurt other people, because his control is making sure people do not truly care for him. And he doesn't realise how much he's hurting Jem by essentially meaning that Jem has to enter a Yin Fen Den to save him. He is using the drug that is slowly killing Jem as an escape, whereas Jem is tied to it. It is in many ways his own personal demon. It is the ghost that haunts him. It is the very pain in his bones. And Will just goes and uses and abuses that very same substance. Of course Jem is going to have feelings about that. And I think this leads us onto a wider note about this series as a whole. Will, Jem and Tessa, between all of them, showcase so many different types of love. And that is something I don't think I personally realised when I first read this. Of course I realised they all loved each other, but I don't think I so much realised the depths and nuances of their loves for one another. Between the three of them, we see love as selfishness, love as protectiveness, love as sacrifice, and love as battle. We see love as acceptance and companionship. Love is protectiveness, and it's being known as much as it is passion. In the end, love is what binds these people, and it's love, their love for one another, whether that be romantic or otherwise, that I think is going to be the hope of this series. So Jessamine and Nate are apparently married. Forgot that. And can we just talk about the fact Will and Tessa making out on the balcony because demon powers mix into the lemonade, but who is it that interrupts them? Of course it's Magnus Bane. This becomes a motif. This becomes a comedic theme that we can tip our hat at. Magnus Bane loves to interrupt. Now, does that go on to become walking in when or just after people have had sex? Yes, it does. If you've read all of them, it's just a fun little connection to see between them. So what we seeded earlier is potentially true. Jessamine has just said with the mortal sword in her hand, so this is what she believes to be the truth. This is what she knows is the truth. Whether this is actually the truth or not, that's a different thing. But she has been told that Tessa, yes, her father is a demon. We already kind of assumed that. But her mother is a Shadowhunter, which potentially would explain, since Shadowhunter blood is meant to be dominant, that would potentially explain why she doesn't have a warlock mark. Well, Magnus really does love black hair and blue eyes, doesn't he? Trying to use Will to make Camille jealous. Gideon and Sophie. I think he's the right kind of physically able to protect, but soft and understanding and patient. I just need more of them. I need more Gideon and Sophie, please. Less Gabriel all the time, but more Gideon and Sophie. See, this is why I could never live in the past. Because this whole thing of my actions were inexcusable, what you must think of me, propriety, blah, blah, blah. Like, you want to jump each other's bones. Do it. Full consent and fully aware what's going on, obviously. But just... We're at page 358. Jessamine is in the Silent City. Jem and Tessa have just gone to her in hopes that she can help them get a message to Nate, get him to reveal a little bit more about the whereabouts of Mortmain to Tessa disguised as Jessamine. They've essentially used the fact that she's easily manipulated against her. We've reached that time of the evening where I went and got a glass of wine. I filled her to the brim. She's a heavy pour. I had a bottle to finish. This was everything left in the bottle, and honestly, I'm just too lazy to go back downstairs and refill, so I poured everything left in her. It's strictly at the weekend. I'll have a whole new bottle kicking about the house for that. I try and have a different bottle every week so I can try new wines. It's either a white or a rosé though. I just don't drink red. I think Sophie just brilliantly foreshadowed the brief but passionate versus long-lasting nature of her relationships with these boys, of Tessa's relationships with these boys. That does not mean defining her love for these boys at all, because I do not believe at all she ever stops loving Will. I think she loves both of these boys simultaneous to one another. Just like for all that Will eventually be happy married to Tessa, he will forever love and seek out Jem. And vice versa, obviously. But Nate dies at some point, right? Please. Unrequited love is a ridiculous state, and it makes those in it behave ridiculously. Does this not ring a bell of declarations of love amuse me, especially when they're unrequited? Is it a Herondale thing? Like, is Charlotte already pregnant? Because she just went to throw up on a mission. Everything Henry has always done, it has been in any way he thought he could help the people he cared about, so that is all of the children in their charge, Jem, Will, Jessamine, but especially to help Charlotte, which often you see his anxiety about being involved in official clave or council business because he is worried he will reflect badly on Charlotte, that he will in some way confirm what everyone else thinks about her because she's a woman by him exhibiting his failures as a leader, when all of them know that Charlotte is a strong leader. Henry never intended to be. What Henry is he is amazingly supportive of Charlotte, and he cares for her deeply. Everything he does is an attempt to help her, and it is an attempt to support her, even if that means his absence from situation. I fail to believe that he would spend as much time in his crypt trying to create new things rather than just understand how other things function and are made if he did not want to help Charlotte and the other Shadowhunters of the Institute in any way he could. Nate's dead. Charlotte got attacked. Henry got attacked. Will is losing blood rapidly. Tessa just passed out from a gash to the head. Jem broke his leg at some point. We aren't doing well, folks. And we still have like 100 pages left. Also, does everyone flirt with Will when they meet him? Especially Downworlders. They all seem to flirt with Will. Don't blame them. But like, finally, the truth is revealed. There has never been a curse on you, Will Herondale. Not one put there by me. He has spent 5 years isolating himself, trying to make himself not worthy of love, purposely hurting people, purposely trying to make himself not worth caring about for no reason. Think of that 12-year-old boy hearing his parents at the Institute gates begging for him to come home and turning them away because he thinks them loving him will kill them. He's very broken, said Magnus, like a lovely vase that someone has smashed. Only luck and skill can put it back together the way it was before. Okay, this says so much about that kindness and that care that I say defines Magnus so much. He has lived hundreds of years. He has had attachments to mundanes. He has had attachments to people who die. He has attachments to immortal beings. He knows of the pain, and he could very easily shut himself off. He said he knew once of a warlock who had lived over 1,000 years, and he no longer understood love or hate. The one thing he still understood is fear. But the thing about Magnus is he still understands love, and he feels love and care so deeply. Because Wolsey says to him, you cannot save every fallen bird, even the handsome ones. Magnus's simple reply is one will do. And that just shows the humanity in him, I think. The humanity to care enough about these simple interactions with people and to form attachments with individuals, to want to help them, to look after and to look over them. And this is why I adore Magnus Bane as a character, because despite all that he has hurt throughout his life, he does not turn bitter, he does not turn hard. There is a softness to him and a care to him. It's like he has taken all the things that have hurt him and have decided to not allow another to go through that alone. So just when Will learn that people can love him without dying, that there is no curse, that he is free to let others love him as he has always desired, he is free to show his truest self, which is actually incredibly observant and caring and tender. His parabatai proposes to Tessa. Just a little part of me breaks for Will, who has spent 5 years isolated. Demon pox is real. Will has been vindicated. We're on page 454. I have under 50 pages left. Do I have to wait till next book to see Benedict Lightwood become a worm? Because I'll be honest, it would be a really welcome sight right about now. Tessa broke her own heart so as not to hurt Jem or Will. She purposely did not tell Will the depth of her feeling because she knew it wouldn't just harm Jem, it would harm the both of them. So what she's ostensibly done is she has hurt herself in an attempt to set Will free. That is the exact same selflessness that Will has exhibited for 5 years, trying to protect the people he has come to see as a second family from caring too deeply for him and dying as a result. I'm Cecily Herondale. I have come to be trained as a shadow hunter. What a way to end, because we don't get an epilogue in this one. It just ends. Oh my god. I didn't cry, but I almost did, because William Herondale, after 5 years of only allowing himself one sin, Jem is my great sin. He allowed a boy who was already dying to love him. And when he tells the girl he loves that he loves her, she tells him that she is engaged to the boy that he allowed to love him. Right, this book, I don't think it does loads to move forward the plot of this series. It's got a lot of the filler information that we need. We learn more about Mortmain's motivations, although Mortmain himself never actually appears in this book. We learn a little bit more about Benedict Lightwood. Cannot wait for him to turn into a worm in Clockwork Princess. Also, we find out that Will's family are staying in Mortmain's house because his father lost all his money gambling. I still think surely there's a link between him losing all his money gambling, Nate lost a lot of money gambling, and he got brought into the Pandemonium Club, thus under Mortmain's control. I still think there's a link there, but that's how we get introduced to them. And of course, at the end of this book, Cecily, she appears. Will is not going to be happy about this one. So what this book is essentially is it's a lot of character growth. We find out so much more about really all of our characters. Jem, Will and Tessa, their love for each other, what it says about themselves, how they do not want to prioritize their own love over the feelings of each of the person in that kind of trio that they love, how love is so many things in so many contexts for them, and that is the beautiful complexities that are at the heart of this series. This is a series of love. That is what this story tells. It's a story of love, but as I've said before, it's a story of love amongst characters who are in many ways defined by their fear. Their fear dictates how they act. It defines how they love. It's almost hard rating these doing a reread because I know the next one is going to be a 5 stars because it emotionally destroys me. But I think the character development in here is expertly done. Me and my Goodreads review are really gonna have to reflect on some things. That is me done for the day. There is a chapter in the back of this which is a new perspective on Jem and Tessa's first kiss. I could read that right now. I'm not going to. It's literally just gone midnight, so I'm definitely not going to. What I am going to do is save it for the morning and head over to my TikTok because I will film a little reaction to this and post it there. For now, I'm gonna head to bed and we will regroup for Clockwork Princess in the morning. It is the next day and I am back. I'm not emotionally prepared for the fact that we're about to start Clockwork Princess, but we're going to do it anyway. Like I have been doing recently, I'm going to do a how many pages can I read in an hour for TikTok for the first little bit of reading this. But after that, I am all yours, aka you will see me sob by the end of this book, be warned. If seeing other people cry makes you cry, I can only apologise in advance. Also, I am not a pretty crier. But we are over 500 pages this time. We are the chunkiest of the Infernal Devices books here. And, you know, we get to see the complexities that are the will, gem and Tessa of it all. So let me get some pages read and I will be back. We made it to page 82, which is chapter 4 in our hour of reading. That lined up pretty perfectly, actually, if I do say so myself. This is the bit I've been waiting for, which is when Benedict Lightwood becomes a worm. And honestly, it was just as funny. It was just as funny this time round. Also, why does it mirror when Gabriel's like, father's a worm, and Gideon's all here like, yes, I know, he's disgraced the family, blah blah blah, getting carried away thinking his own thing. It kind of recalls back to when Izzy says Simon's a rat in City of Bones at Magnus's party, and instantly Alec jumps to the moral meaning of that phrase and jumps into a protective kind of persona for his little sister. I feel like that's mirrored again here. And is it a Lightwood thing? Is it an older brother Lightwood thing? I don't know. It's a funny parallel though. Also, Will being absolutely horrified at Cecily being here and training as a shadow hunter because she's putting herself in danger when he has tried to seem so carefree and not worth caring about and thrown himself into danger every which way for 5 years. It just feels a little bit like payback, karma, maybe. We literally have just jumped straight into this. We're going to have Gideon and Gabriel Lightwood both in the Institute. Sophie and Gideon seem to have a little bit of space between them now because romance across different social classes, big taboo of the time, not to mention Shadowhunters are not meant to be romantically involved with mundanes. And we're seeing this correspondence about the council wanting Consul Wayland's opinion on recommending Charlotte as the future consul, and Consul Wayland is here like, no, sorry, women, leadership for women, god no, too emotional. I would love to think that people think differently now, but I don't think that's the case. I mean, there's an orange idiot in the presidential office in the US rather than a woman. Make that make sense. We have seen proven in an official meeting that this is not the case, and that has been advocated for. So it feels like a little bit of corrupt politics going on. Nepotism maybe, because Consul Wayland recommending his own nephew. There's always some corrupt politics or nepotism going on, isn't there? Hey lovely, so I feel like I really have not been vlogging, nor have I been reading Clockwork Princess. Is this because I'm not emotionally prepared, so I keep just putting it off slightly? Yes, I think it is. We have like 3 hours until the rugby final. The Red Roses are playing in the Women's Rugby World Cup final today, and then the first live week of Strictly Dances happens. So it's a big day. We have about 3 hours, like I say. Probably more like 2.5 now because I've been doing a little bit of editing for TikTok. So I'm going to take my book downstairs with me, grab some food, grab a coffee, and just see how much I can get done. Essentially yesterday the Red Roses won the Women's Rugby World Cup and I am incredibly happy. I am very proud. I did cry, of course. And then I watched week 1 of Strictly. I have a whole pyramid ranking in my brain. I took notes, everything. There are some really promising people this year and I was very shocked by Karen Carney, is that her name? That week 1 drive, very impressive. Anyway, today we got right back into reading. I read to page 287, which is a good chunk on what we had yesterday, before I then had to go to an ice hockey game. I went and watched Guildford Flames against Sheffield Steelers. We unfortunately lost in overtime. It hurts, okay? It hurts. I just got changed. I have a little hot water bottle here. Leopard print because Of course. I am about to take my makeup off because I don't know if you can tell this is patchy, and I am having an absolute crisis because now my Sunday evenings are spent getting stamps on my hand from going to a sports match rather than going to the worst nightclub in Europe. I genuinely miss nightclubs. They don't have to be good nightclubs. They can be really, really cheesy nightclubs. I just miss it. I plan to maybe read another chapter or two, but then I am going to save a lot of the bulk of the ending of this for tomorrow. I will say we've hit the point of this book that I remember so vividly. I remember there being such complex and nuanced depictions and descriptions of love between Jem and Tessa, between Will and Tessa, between Jem and Will, and between the three of them combined. I had seen someone say recently that Tessa loves Will and Jem in turn for the same reasons that they love each other. So she loves Will for his spontaneity, but also for his loyalty, for the compassion that he hides deep within him, and for Jem, she loves him for his care, his patience, and his attentiveness. But I think it's more than that, because in many ways, Tessa depicts their hope. She is hope for Will that someone will see him and expect him to act better than he has previously. And for Jem, she is like a lifeblood, a promise of a real life, of the life of a man that he has given up due to the inevitability of his death. For Tessa to be that hope, she has to see the good in both of them. And I think there is something about the loyalty, compassion, and steadfast dedication that Will and Jem have for each other as parabatai that honestly I think defines their hearts and their loves more succinctly than anything else. In many ways, I wonder whether Tessa would have actually loved either of these men as deeply if she had not first got to know them as parabatai to each other. It is the only way in my brain that I can really conceive how this love can grow and be shared, because it is intrinsically linked between the three of them. I do not think a love this strong or palpable could exist between only two. It has to be between the dynamic of the three of them. They all make each other love each other even more, and they are willing to sacrifice their own happiness for the happiness of the other two. That is why this dynamic works, because it depicts those complexities of love and loyalty in such an amazing and human way. Our hearts, they need a mirror, Tessa. We see our better selves in the eyes of those who love us, and that is a beauty that brevity alone provides. Because of how they reflect one another, because of how they showcase the truth of each other, and how they depict hope back to each other. Now, we've kind of reached the point that in my brain, the lasting images of this book capture very well, which is Jem very, very ill. They can't get any more yin fen because Mortmain has brought it all up and has stockpiled it, precisely to try and get them in his power. Then in the battle where the automatons come to the Institute, kill Jessamine and take Tessa, we see Jem get very, very weakened, and we believe he is now truly dying. He is on his deathbed. So that is one image. The other that I always remember is Will on horseback racing, almost like the saviour love interest in a novel, after Tessa towards the Welsh mountains. It is an image that I so clearly have of this book, and I couldn't quite remember how we got to that point, but I always remembered it existing. It is a defining and lasting image of this book for me. Now, this does come after Jem hears Magnus talk about the fact that Will is in love with Tessa, and Jem, being Jem, he wished he'd known, because he would have called off the engagement, because he never would have wanted to see Will unhappy, which just mirrors so much what Tessa and Will said about their own feelings, which is so interesting. Like I say, it's a very selfless love that they seem to share. Each other's happiness is worth giving up their own. And then he says, "You both have my blessing," before Will leaves. And that one got me in the heart. I may read a chapter or so again tonight, but we will recap tomorrow morning and get into the real meat of the emotions tomorrow. Page 330, we have cried for the first time. You say we are born and born again. I say there is a river that divides the dead and the living. What I do know is that if we are born again, I will meet you in another life, and if there is a river, you will wait on the shores for me to come to you so that we can cross together. You hear that, James Casters? We are bound, you and I, over the divide of death, down through whatever generations may come, forever. I didn't expect to cry already. It is a new day and I have woken up feeling like I'm getting ill. I'm starting to feel pressure in my sinuses. I first woke up this morning feeling physically sick. My voice was very croaky at the start of the day, hence why I'm not filming until now. It has meant that I've spent the day on the sofa reading. We have made it to page 403 and I have thoughts. Tessa is with Mortmain, Will is galloping on his horse, a knight in shining armour to come rescue Tessa, very fairy tale-esque. Why does the consul hate Charlotte? What is the consul's game? What is he trying to pull behind the scenes? What dodgy things is he doing? I don't think this far into the series we've had a good consul or a good inquisitor. The inquisitor in here maybe might be quite inoffensive so far, but like, unless the inquisitor comes through for Charlotte, I'm not branding you good. You know? We know for certain now that Tessa is half Shadowhunter, half Greater Demon. So her father was a Greater Demon who transformed to look like Richard Grey, the man she thought was her father. So Tessa's mother never knew that Tessa's father wasn't who she thought her father was, if that makes sense. And her mother, Elizabeth Grey, was in fact a Shadowhunter. When Mortmain fled after his parents were killed by Shadowhunters, by Aloysius Starkweather and co. It was the fairies, the fae of the local area, of the woodlands, or who took him in, who kept him safe. And in debt to them, he helped break into the Institute and replace Aloysius Starkweather's granddaughter, Adele, who obviously is Shadowhunter family, took her from her crib and replaced her with a sickly, mundane child. And obviously this means that when they tried to mark Adele, she died and became forsaken because she didn't have Shadowhunter blood, who they thought was Adele, when in fact the actual Adele as she was born was now Elizabeth and was raised by mundanes. Tessa was possible because she was born of a Shadowhunter who was not marked and a Greater Demon. Essentially, Mortmain has some crazy hope that he can create a master race that's better than the Shadowhunters and thus cause their destruction. He wants to do it through birth and he wants to do it through the automatons. Gabriel has come clean about everything the consul asked him and Gideon to do, and then him specifically to do. He retains his honor because we find out he never sent the letter about Aloysius Starkweather going to see Charlotte. We're seeing something between Gabriel and Cecily. It is the first time in this book, in their interactions, that I actually find something to like about Gabriel, which I think in many ways is probably the point. We have about 165 pages left, and as you can see, it is getting dark outside, but I'm hoping to finish this tonight, which means I'm going to cry. It's probably a good thing that I'm choosing to do this on a day where I haven't put makeup on, because that would burn. Let's get stuck back in and I will keep you updated. What really interests me is Will has just found Tessa and he crosses into this invisible prison configuration thing that's going on, so he's trapped with her. She finds out that Jem has died. The most intimately known part of each other is the part of each other that loves Jem the way they each do, because it's arguably the place they are most similar. And a lot of authors could have depicted this as jealousy, or as simply there's a shared care for each other, or differentiated brotherhood from romantic love more definitively. This is instead a look at how love is the thing that keeps us going, it's the thing that gives us hope, and it's the thing that connects us. It's the thing that brings us humanity, it brings purpose to our lives. And it's why I think it's really important to see Tessa and Will sitting in their grief together. Not just because it tells us how they cared for Jem, but it speaks so much to how they care for one another. Also, I just remembered that I haven't mentioned the angel that comes to Tessa in a dream that is supposedly bound to the clockwork angel to protect her life was ethereal, which is the same angel that we see in City of Glass, who has given his blood to Clary and to Jace, which means they have greater powers, and who was trapped by Valentine. Also in a cave. You were in a cave being held captive. Is this really the time? Do you ever think that Magnus thinks about the fact that he helped Henry Branwell, who is married to Charlotte Branwell, who used to be Charlotte Fairchild? Do you ever think he thinks about the fact that he later down the line meets Clary, who is a Fairchild and who has that bright red hair, and she can make portals with a simple rune. Do you ever think Magnus thinks about that? Being beheaded by automatons couldn't have happened to a nicer man than the consul. I'm honestly so glad, and the Inquisitor seems to be standing up for Charlotte, so I think we found the first real good depiction of an Inquisitor. I'm celebrating the fictional death of a corrupt man. Well, this is unexpected. Magnus, I think it's at this point a rite of passage that you walk in on couples during or after, and this is where that tradition starts. I love Magnus. If you haven't picked up yet, I adore Magnus. For this alone, you might want to get up. Everyone will be here quite soon to rescue you, and you may prefer to have clothes on when they arrive. I would at any rate, but then I am well known to be remarkably shy. No, you aren't, Magnus. I thought you might be in need of clothing, but I didn't realise quite how in need. Is this not the kind of ribbing that you give your housemate when either they've done the walk of shame or you see their conquest from the evening before leaving the house in the early hours? They said Brother Zachariah is here now. I mean, we know who Brother Zachariah is later down the line. So does that mean Jem has essentially... We don't know Jem's a silent brother yet, but spoiler alert, he becomes one. Did he essentially become a silent brother and then convince them, hey, by the way, we're still going to do this? My parabatai and my wife, who are no longer my parabatai or going to be my wife, but priorities. Jem! It is you! As metal rang on metal, some inner part of Jem, some part that had been lost without his even knowing it was lost, felt the pleasure of fighting together with Will one last time. Ooh. Don't make me cry. My tears are for the epilogue, that is it. She is trying to change into the angel. You have to wonder whether she would have survived this if she did not have Shadowhunter blood. I feel like Tessa's existence creates so many questions because she shouldn't be able to survive this, surely. Okay, knowing the whole angel fire and heavenly fire thing that's to come in the Mortal Instruments, this part about angel fire and Tessa is interesting to me. She has survived thus far. The fire should have killed her. It would have killed any normal human. But she is part shadow hunter and part demon, and she was protected by the angel whose fires she drew on. It shielded her even in those last moments as it blazed up and burned away its own corporeal form. What does that mean for what's to come for Jace? They said they would have done anything for Jem to survive, to live. I don't think they ever quite considered the consequences of what his life would look like, because it was never going to be exactly the same. And there was a point where it had to be questioned, was Jem doing this for himself, for a duty as a shadow hunter, for his innate belief in being a shadow hunter, which he has frequently discussed and frequently emphasized? Or was he living for the people around him? And I think in this instance, it's one of the only ways of surviving that he could not do for the people around him, because it would mean surviving without them. It would mean living without them. It would mean outliving them, which is something he never believed would be the case for him. We endure the unbearable and we bear it. Henry would live. He would never walk again. Which, think for a shadow hunter, can never walk again, can never engage in battle in the same way. I think in many ways Henry's the only character we could do this to, because yes, it's a tragedy, but also we know other ways in which he serves their duty and their cause as shadow hunters, of defending mundanes and the world against demons, because he is an inventor. He purposely invents to try and help this shadow hunter cause and to try and keep the people he loves safe. They want to make Charlotte consul. And you look at the politics of it, you look at the complexities of gender at the time, because whilst women can fight like any man can as a shadow hunter, and that is perfectly accepted, their station is very much the same in that capacity. What they are considered to be as leaders are vastly different. Charlotte is met with disdain, but also disbelief in her abilities when it comes to running the Institute. But yet we see Charlotte, she is an incredibly strong leader, and one thing that is noted from Gabriel and from Cecily at different points, I believe, is that she is someone who inspires loyalty, and she is being asked to be the first female consul. Now that has a weight to it, not purely because it's progress, but because as it's been noted to be the first of anything, it carries weight, it carries burden, but it is important nonetheless. Not to cause anybody concern, but my ability to breathe through my nose, it's substantially decreasing. I feel like you can hear it when I say certain words. There's much left of the book. We're gonna try and just blitz through it, and then we can cry. Most people never find one great love in their life. You are lucky enough to have found two. I will make you a promise. Every year, Tessa, on one day, I will meet you on that bridge. I will come from the Silent City, and I will meet you, and we will be together, if only for an hour. But you must tell no one. An hour every year. It is not much, but you will live. You will live. That is what is important. I will not be visiting your grave. Jem goes to see Will. He lived but was lost. If there is one thing I could ask of you, is that you be happy. The thing about Jem is he knows Will so intrinsically. He's asking Will to finally allow himself the thing that he has denied himself for years, and that is happiness. In many ways, Jem lived a life of love because of Will. God, the tears have started. Will is so keenly aware that this option, Jem as the silent brother, was the way to keep Jem alive, that he does not wish to entertain anybody who considers him not to be. He lives because you let him go. He would have stayed with you and died if you had asked it, but you loved him enough to prefer that he live, even if that life is separate from yours. Words have the power to change us. Okay, we've made it. It's the epilogue. It's Blackfriars Bridge. Am I emotionally prepared? No. Am I about to probably break my own heart? Yes. Am I going to do it anyway? Of course. Okay, it's just cruel of Cassandra Clare to have written this as the epilogue. But then again, it's closure, but so cruel. In Will's final moments, he gave Jem back the gift of music. Go in peace. Oh, Magnus. He takes care of his friends. It's his defining feature. Another story of Lightwoods and Herondales and Fairchilds. I've never had a lifetime to plan for before. The worst moments. When sitting alone at breakfast, she had realised she had forgotten the precise blue of his eyes or the depths of his laugh, that like the sound of Jem's violin music, they had faded into the distance of her memories. In the same way that Jem showed her London, she will show him the world. At last, the will comes full circle. This is such an amazing look at love and mortality. Hiya lovelies. Last night I finished Clockwork Princess. I sobbed, as you would expect. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, I love it. I genuinely think this has some of the most gorgeous and in-depth writing of the Infernal Devices series. We look at more complex depictions of love. I think we also emphasize that love is not simply happening between Will and Tessa or Jem and Tessa. Love between these three is multi-directional. It cannot exist simply between two, because the love is founded on the love for someone who shares a soul between two people. The parabatai bond is intrinsic to how Tessa comes to love both Will and Jem, and in turn you can perhaps suggest that it's intrinsic to how they both come to love Tessa. And the interesting thing is how these three are all incredibly willing to give up their own happiness if it means the other two are happy. They will sacrifice themselves, they will sacrifice their life, their happiness, the love they have, and expressing that love in favour of the other two being happy. But that is not just something we see with Will, as we see at the beginning of this novel. We see it when Jem learns that Will loves Tessa, in his reaction to it, and we see it in Tessa's sacrifices in not telling Will of her feelings for him. There is this incredibly complex, interconnected, and incredibly messy tangle of emotions that builds this web between them. If any of them were to be removed, the web would collapse. It is not simple depictions of love, because love is so rarely simple. And this is the most quotable of any of these books. There is such an interesting look at love, mortality, and grief. By the epilogue, we really learn that the guiding light of this series, as much as it's love, it's also hope. It's what Tessa encompasses, but we see this hope in hope for Will to be a better man, hope for Will to find joy rather than the sorrow he has known at the hands of the curse. We see it in Jem's hope to live, in his hope for the survival of the two people he loves that pushes him towards a life that he may not have imagined for himself. We see it in Tessa's hope from not turning away from the unique nature of who she is, and in the epilogue of Tessa's hope of love and living love with someone who is once again mortal despite the egregious pain it caused her the first time. And of course, we have everything with Mortmain. We have the complex social commentary to do with women in positions of power, to do with corrupt politics and corrupt politicians. We have all of that going on in the background. We have things like looking at what is moral and just and good in the face of what you were taught was right. We see with Cecily the idea of happiness and pursuit of happiness, even if it is different from the happiness your parents may once have hoped for you. We see so many of these complex ideas happening outside of Will, Jem and Tessa, yet Will, Jem and Tessa are the main focus. What Cassie does amazingly, and we saw it in City of Glass as well, when she gets the opportunity to have built these worlds up, she can then take the straightforward narrative arc that needs to be achieved across a series or across a singular novel, and she can intersperse that with interesting moments of character development, of connection, of social commentary, and looking at the wider social hierarchies of Shadowhunters. She can flesh out ideas of our Downworlder characters. We see more Magnus, we see Wolsey Scott going on in here as well, and that is what I loved about it. That's where the genius in the writing comes in, because you get even more immersed in this shadow world. There is just so much jam-packed into this book. Of course it was a 5-star read for me. Now that is where I bring this reading vlog to a close. The next reading vlog I do for the Shadowhunters will be the second half of the Mortal Instruments series. This is of course reading vlog number 2. If you did miss reading vlog number 1, I will leave it in the cards up here. Do the stuff that tells the algorithm you like this. Like, comment, subscribe. Comment specifically. My videos seem to do significantly better when I have comments. Let me know what songs you associate with the series. Let me know what songs you associate with specific books. And let me know which book you are excited for me to get to. These are a weekly thing, so if you want to see the next one of these vlogs, please subscribe. You will get a little notification that way when it is out. Stay tuned for that, and I will catch you guys in the next one.